so far, Amsterdam? You still on this journey with me? Are you starting to understand me? Good. It's so incredible for me to be able to look at my mother every night in the show, to stare at her beautiful photograph. She's always with me, obviously. And I'm grateful for that. Also to see David's mother every night on the stage. And to be able to perform each evening with my children, who mean everything to me. Today is World AIDS Day. Do you know that? Is that important to anybody? Maybe it seems like it's so far away that it doesn't mean anything. It's just another holiday. But let me explain something to you. There is no cure for AIDS. People still die of AIDS. Did you know that? Just 5 people said yes. When I first came to New York, I was lucky enough to eventually meet and become friends with so many amazing artists, musicians, painters, singers, dancers. The list goes on and on, writers. And then one day people started getting sick. And nobody could understand what was happening. People were just starting to lose weight. People were dropping like flies. They were going to the hospital. Nobody understood what was happening. The news started calling it the gay cancer because it was predominantly in the gay community, which was a terrible shame because I don't know if you understand this right now, but in the early 80s, it was not cool to be gay. It was not accepted to be gay. Did you know that? Or do you just take it for granted right now? So to be able to stand up and say, I am a homosexual, was a very brave action. A very brave and courageous thing to say and do. Right, but the point isn't really about that. Can you imagine what it was like in that time when being gay was considered sinful and disgusting? When suddenly the vast majority of the gay community started dropping like flies and people were dying everywhere. When I say they were dying everywhere, I'm not exaggerating. Every day I would wake up and hear a new story, a new friend. I'd be visiting someone new. I'd be sitting by their bedside watching them die. Hundreds and hundreds. Meanwhile, nobody in the medical community wanted to do anything about it because they said, well, fuck it, they're faggots. They deserve to die. Yeah, that's what they said. It was a pretty devastating, scary time. And I personally lost so many friends, so many loved ones. I would have cut off my arms if I could have found a cure for them to live. I watched so many people die, male and female, children, straight, gay, etc. Because in those days, people didn't test blood in the hospital for blood transfusions. So Children were also ostracized if they had HIV. I don't know if you know that. In any case, it was a devastating time, and for me, it was like a whole generation was wiped out. And I watched my very best friend, Martin, die. I was holding his hand. He was suffering so much, he could barely breathe. He wanted me to play Maria Callas. He said, play Costa Diva. And I did. And I said, please, Martin, let go. And I watched his spirit leave his body. And I don't know if you know this, but during Live to Tell, he is the first face that appears. And then there were so many others afterwards. I'm not saying this because I want you to feel sorry for me. I want you to recognize how lucky you are right now to be alive. Now you can take a drug and you can have unprotected sex. It's kind of crazy. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I don't think you understand. I don't think anybody understands what a crazy time it was. Hundreds and thousands of people died instantly. An entire generation. Wiped out. Gone. And I feel so lucky that I survived. And then, just to come full circle, I was, some years ago, writing some children's books, and this woman approached me, got in touch with me. She said, oh, you write children's books, you have children, you care so much about children. Did you know that there's a country in Africa where over 1 million children have been orphaned by AIDS? And I said, what are you talking about? Anyway, she told me about this country called Malawi. And I went there, and it was like history was repeating itself. I went into the hospitals, I saw the bodies piled up on top of each other. I saw people dying everywhere. No one had any drugs, any medication, nothing. There were no ARVs available. Decades later, it was like watching history all over again. And that is how I met my son David, whose mother died of AIDS. And all of my children that I adopted from Malawi. My beautiful children. But people are so cruel, you know, when I was going to St. Vincent's Hospital visiting patients who were dying. Their families wanted nothing to do with them. This is in the 80s in New York. And I went, there was a whole ward where there was only 2 nurses that would go into the ward that would even touch them because everybody thought if you touched a person who had AIDS, you'd get it. And I just walked down this row and I saw all these men emaciated,